Okay, so this is going to be a post-MSI episode of slashff. On the screen, as you can see, this is my tier list of just global teams, mostly like top 5 of most regions. I went to top 12 of LPL, I think, for the most part. Anyhow, what's up, guys? How are your summers going?
Fine, busy. I actually took a break watch from watching MSI. I didn't watch all the matches, sadly.
That's fine. Well, you will. How have you been enjoying pro play? Have you been enjoying the Udyr meta?
Play shit's been boring, dude. There, realistically, that's been a pretty boring MSI. Hard to get hyped when there's not more teams.
Well, so what was your opinion of the pro play meta, though? Do you think that the introduction of Morgana and Rumble was better than the previous Hecarim meta, or do you think realistically it just didn't solve much?
I think this meta was better just because there was more picks that showed up. Like there was more Nidalee, there was a bit more selection. But I don't know what's more hype to watch: Udyr, Hecarim, or Morgana Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
I think Morgana Rumble's more hype to watch, but watching like Lee Sin top be super uninteractive, watching Morgana jungle be super uninteractive is kind of like also not that interesting.
Okay.
If it was Lee Sin jungle meta, it'd be more hype.
Yeah, that's
Right.
why he deserves to be in the jungle and not a laner.
Well, if you watched MSI, you'd know he was pretty hype as a laner. So
He was hype as a
Man,
later,
I
but
don't,
it was like
I don't,
uninteractive as hell. Like literally,
I
like,
know
he couldn't
Fudge
do
did really
anything
well
on
on him.
the
yeah. So, anyways,
Hodge had an amazing turn.
well, the point of this is that I preface this with for you guys by saying you didn't have to watch MSI in depth because we're not going to break down MSI in depth. Okay, that's everyone like there's better analysts out there who do that. I want to do this to take a look at regional strength and also a retroactive look in the last few years of regional strength. Is that so? I have a hot take for next for this Worlds actually. I know last year a lot of people were saying if there's 4 LCK 4 LPL like EU is screwed, right, because they're not going to get our groups. And I think that would have been true if this was a previous year. But I think this year LCK is actually quite weak. I don't think that in itself is a hot take, is that LCK is quite weak. But I think LCK is weak relative to Europe. And I know I'm the resident EU hater, right? I think we all are. But I am actually willing to go on a limb and say I think the EU top teams are, for the most part, outside of Dom1, better than the LCK teams, which I actually don't think this was the case ever, even in 2018, which we can go back and look at. But I think this is the first time going into summer, and we'll see depending on summer, things could change, but just post MSI, that I think the EU teams, the top 3, Mad Lions, Rogue, and G2, are going to be stronger generally than the LCK top. Dom 1, yeah, they'll be better, but against Genji, against T1, I think EU is actually the
Yeah,
stronger of the bunch.
I'm pulling up the teams right now. Give me a second.
Um, so if we look back retrospectively, right, 2018 was kind of the fall of Korea, or so to speak, and we saw the teams there. KT Rolster, Afrika Freaks, and Genji. Now Genji, they looked very bad in the group stage. They got knocked out like 1-5 or something.
They
Afrika,
miracle ran it through the gauntlet,
yeah,
essentially.
Afrika got 3-0'd by Cloud9 in the quarters. They barely came out first place after a slog between Flash Wolves and G2. And KT Rolster, they fought the eventual world champions in the quarterfinals and lost and almost got 3-0'd. Now, here's my opinion. A lot of people say that EU was at their strongest in 2018, just generally. When I think back about it, I actually really disagree on that take, because if I think about what teams were present in Korea, Griffin was present. They didn't make Worlds, but they were present. And Damwon Gaming was a challenger team at the time that was just slamming EU in scrims. EU's top 3 sent to Worlds that year were Vitality, G2, and Fnatic. G2 was able to make the miracle against RNG, but by then, by the Worlds meta developing, RNG had already begun faltering, especially even we saw that in group stage against Vitality and Cloud9. We saw that EDG and IG were actually quite strong, going more toward the, eventually toward the end of the tournament. Now, I think that LCK is actually not as weak as people thought that year, because when we look back, like I said, KT, if they had faced any other team that was not IG, I think they would have slammed Fnatic, and I think they would have slammed G2, honestly.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah.
I can agree with that.
I think Afrika got insanely unlucky drawing Cloud9, because Cloud9 3-0'd them and they were their main scrim partner, right? I don't know if Afrika would have slammed Fnatic, or Slam G2, I think it would have been close, and maybe the EU teams would have even won, because Afrika had Kuro, and I just don't trust Kuro. But they also had Keen, and I think
Keen.
Yeah, Keen was stronger than any of the Korean, the European top laners, even Wonder.
Yeah.
You know, I thought.
Yeah, I think Keen in that year is way better than Bwipo Soaz and Wonder.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Bwipo's strongest thing that year was his ability to play the Victor flex, right? That was one of his strongest abilities that year, because Victor top became meta because he was a Victor player for such a long time. So, anyways, and then obviously Genji, you know, they're the weakest one, but I think if you replace them with Griffin or even, you know, Damwon, even the challenger team Damwon, I don't know if they would take G2 or Fnatic in best of 5, but I know definitely in group stage in best of 1 they would have performed better than Genji, right? So that's my take. Like, looking back at 2018, even though that was, quote, the fall of Korea, I really don't think Korea was that far behind, if at all. I honestly think they were at least even, if not ahead. And just the way the tournament played out, it had looked like they were significantly worse. As far as LPL is concerned, like, yeah, they were slightly better that year, but I think by the end of the tournament, actually, they weren't that much ahead of Korea. I think earlier in the year, you know, during Asian Games, during MSI, LPL was much higher. Because, Kingzone got dominated by RNG. You know, the meta was coming off of 2017 still. And going into Rift Rivals, you know, a lot of the LPL teams were actually quite strong. But toward the end of Worlds, I just don't think the disparity was there. When we look back at 2019, this was a year where I felt that Korea was actually the strongest region in terms of the 3 teams they sent. In the spring of 2019, I thought LPL was the strongest because they had JDG, FPX, and IG. 3 incredibly strong teams that spring. JDG upset FPX, which had an insane regular season record in the playoff run, and then IG 3-0'd them in the finals. It was an insane, you know, spring split for LPL, and then also TES was 4th, that split, technically top esports at the time. And at MSI, IG fell short, right? And by the end of Worlds, it had felt like LPL had only one good team, which was, it felt to me like FPX. IG didn't come back into form until late into the tournament, and RNG, you know, we saw they weren't very strong in the tournament. On the other hand, when we look at LCK that year, they had SKT, Damwon, and Griffin all going to Worlds.
Fucking Griffin didn't implode
they all topped their group. And then let's look at the European teams that year, right? We had Fnatic, G2, and what was the third European team in 2019? It was Splice. Okay. Now, obviously, I don't think Splice was as strong as any of those teams, so I'm going to can them out. Fnatic, yes, they beat RNG in the groups, right? And that's what I mean by, like, I didn't think that Korea or LPL was particularly strong as a region that Worlds by the time Worlds came around. And I think that, you know, G2, even though they were able to beat SKT, they were getting rolled by FPX, and apparently in scrims by many of the other Asian teams, right? They got rolled by Griffin in the groups. And I know, you know, quote, groups don't matter, right? Best of 1 doesn't matter, sure. But, you know, we should consider the fact that getting out first place does matter, and them losing the tiebreaker is significant in that sense, right? Because then that's a best of 3. That's not just best of 1 anymore. That's, in a sense, you could almost consider that a delayed best of 3, right? Like, obviously it's not the same as VO3, but you want to look at that and say, like, okay, this was a significant game, though, so we can't talk it up to just, oh, they trolled and they didn't care. So I honestly think that year, LCK was actually the strongest region in terms of, like, just general, like, team strength, even better than LPL. It's just FPX was able to, you know, come out on top eventually. And, you know, IG was able to beat Griffin because of an extreme, like, difference in one player role that they were able to flex that, that tournament, right? We now go to 2020. This is the year that I actually think LCK is weaker than LPL for once, right? Like, I look at 2020 and I say, yeah, by the time Worlds came around, TES, JDG, Suning, and even LGD, you know, I felt were generally, like, at least the 3 teams, had it not been for LGD, if it was FPX or IG instead of LGD, I thought they were all, like, at least better than some of the lower Korean seeds, right? The lower ones being Dragon X and it was Damwon, Dragon X, and there's one more Korean seed that won last year. Genji, yeah. So I'd felt the LPL teams were stronger, and we saw in MSC, like, the performances that the LPL teams were generally better, right? And by then, Damwon was the strongest, but I think regionally LPL was the strongest there, right? So it's just weird to me that in 2019 and 2020, it is funny that the team that I felt that won the Worlds actually came from a region that generally wasn't as strong. So coming this year, this is what I mean, is, like, this is the first time I legitimately feel like if we look at the Korean teams that will probably be sent to Worlds, that being Damwon Gaming, Genji, T1, and potentially like Hanwha Life, since they have the 4th slot, right? It will be either Hanwha or Dragon X. I really think the EU teams are stronger. When we looked at playoffs for spring in EU, it was extremely competitive between Mad and Rogue, right? And them beating G2 seemed to slump a bit, but I think honestly G2 will come back to form. I don't think they'll have the same like mid-game magic because they don't have perks, but I do think generally as a team they'll be pretty strong, right? So yeah, I don't know. Like, do you agree with this concept that I'm kind of setting up here? Is that for the first time, I really do think that Korea might be a weaker region than LEC, at least like top 5 wise.
I think top 5 wise I can agree with, but I don't know if I can agree with like top 3 versus top 3. If that makes sense, especially like when we're looking at teams who are sitting to Worlds, because like I understand where you're coming from. If you're looking at LEC as a whole, even like even if you put it as top 5, I can get it. But I think top 3 LCK, if especially if T1 for some reason stops fucking doing random lineups and actually sticks to one, I think they'll be strong. I think they'll be strong in G2. I think there's a lot of intangibles that we saw from G2 losing perks, especially like looking at their mentality and the way they approach a best of 5 series. And I want to say LCK top 3 is still stronger.
Okay. Let's do the thought experiment, right? So LCK will probably send Dam1, Genji, and T1, right? At least top 3. LCK has been confirmed 4 slots, by the way, Michael. If you hadn't heard, LPL and LCK are confirmed 4 slots now.
Yeah, for previous results. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so
I'm saying forgetting about Hanwha going number 3, Jack, not T1. Respect the Chovy.
I think Hanwha was almost lost to Noshim Red Force, by the way. If you want to know where I put Hanwha on my tier list, okay, so Hanwha on my tier list, I put them in C tier, Balus, Suning, and right above Rogue, Rare Atom. I put them above Dragon X, but I'll be honest, like that was extremely close series between them and Noshim Red Force, and Noshim Red Force was playing with like Peanut, washed up Peanut, okay, as their jungler. So
Hanwha finished 3rd. That's all I'm saying.
I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you right now that you can jerk off Chovy as much as you want, and I agree. I still think he's probably one of the best mids, but he's not carrying the corpses of the shitter team, Morgan and Vista, into like beating.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, just Morgan and Vista don't have the talent, right? Okay, so
that's why they replaced them.
Yeah, and he goes back on the team.
Is it too late?
Okay. So anyhow.
No, but like, I think I look at T1 and I see their players. I'm like, okay, it makes sense to me that they'd be stronger than G2 at the moment.
I think their player talent is right because like if
I don't think EU's as strong. I think LPL is the only clear like really strong region. And then after that, it's a tie. For me, it could be a toss-up between.
Well,
EU
so
and
I'm saying it's like a marginal increase, right? So if you look at the tier list I made, right, it's like I put Damwon and SSS, but
it's
like
closer than it used to be. But
right.
I don't know who wins,
well,
just because of all the roster swaps that have come in Europe. We're both going to jungle. That's gonna be a weird.
I mean,
the main 55-45 then, LCK, LEC then, if you're to do a matchup.
So you would have to go to matchups individually. I personally actually give the edge this time to LEC, and the whole reason I wanted to do this premise was because I felt like previously I just want to be fair to my opinions of LEC. The same metric that I would have judged like regional strength previously is like I'm sure European fans would have hated me, right? If I was like any sort of figure on Reddit or like Twitter and I said like, hey, I know you guys are doing well, but realistically I think LCK is a stronger region, right? But in order to be fair in that sense, I did have to think about it. I was like, okay, after MSI and looking at Mad Lion's performance and like seeing how close, LEC Spring was, at least right now, it does feel to me that LCK hasn't gotten their shit together yet, based on their playoffs, right? And that generally the regional strength right now, at least based on like how I look at the top teams, right? I don't think it's like a big gap, right? Like, I don't think it's like, oh, the LEC teams are going to slam them. But if I think, like, okay, do I think Mad Lions or Rogue can beat Genji? I honestly think so. Like, I think Genji got murdered by Damwon in spring. But we saw Mad versus Damwon. And even though it was a 5-game series, I wouldn't say it was a close 5-game series, right? I'm not trying to say, like, oh, Mad Lions almost beat Damwon. Realistically, like, the games Damwon won were in crushing fashion. Like, sometimes there's those 5-game series that is actually super one-sided. And there's 3-game series that are very close, right? This was a 5-game series that was very one-sided, Damwon-sided. Like, it was very obvious that Damwon was a better team. But I have to wonder that, like, Mad Lions with their playstyle and cohesion, they are willing to challenge more than a team like Gen G was against Damwon. I think, we've seen Gen G falter all the time when teams are willing to challenge them internationally, right? We saw this back in the Crown version of Gen G in 2018. We saw this in Gen G 2020 at Worlds when they played G2 in the quarterfinals. It feels like Gen G always... It kind of feels like they get throat punched, right? They always in LCK seem to get this gentleman's agreement where they, handshake things. It's like, hey, we're trading this, we're trading this, we're trading this, right? LCK is the gentleman's region. They like to handshake things. I think when they go for the handshake, a team like Mad Lions is going to throat punch them. A team like G2 will throat punch them. I think the only team that I favor Gen G over in LEC for the top 3 is Rogue. Yeah.
Because Rogue plays slower.
Right. Rogue isn't going to throat punch Gen G as hard. And I think Rogue also really relies, Rogue relies on Larson to be consistent, relies on Inspire to be a good jungler, and it relies on snowballing from Hansama. I don't think Hansama is going to snowball against Ruler. I think Gen G can at least be consistent against Larson and Inspired, right? So, I think I would favor Gen G versus Rogue, but I think the other two LEC teams would throat punch Gen G. And I think the problem with T1 right now is that they're too inconsistent, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't favor T1 against any of the teams. I think they're more talented than... I think the T1 players are better than the players in LEC. Of course, right? But player talent, in my opinion, is different than team strength. I think the LEC teams play way better League than T1 right now. So
that's just my thing. Is that I want to see T1 play the same roster for the entire summer and see how well they gel together. And I think that's gonna be the best way to judge them. I don't want to see this fucking shit of just keep swapping out ADCs or randomly leaving Faker on the bench for half the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's a big issue for T1 right now. I do think that I can accept them experimenting in the spring, but I think if they don't get their shit together toward playoffs, right, toward the end of summer and then into playoffs, it's I really don't have much faith in T1 doing stuff.
No, I can 100% agree with that, but I think talent-wise, I'm still siding with LCK. I agree with you. I think LEC does play better League, but I look at LCK players and I'm just there's so much talent in here for it not to be good.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, and that's my thought process behind it.
Okay. Well, but do you agree with my matchup analysis with how I think the teams will face against specifically Gen G? I think is the easiest.
I think Gen G gets run over by the more aggressive LEC teams.
Yeah. What about you, Will? What do you think about the matchup?
It's always so hard to tell because you don't really get to see them play.
Mm-hmm.
Because from the eye test, Korea looks stronger to me just because they don't make as many errors.
Yeah, I mean Humanoid is extremely flippy. We saw that this MSI even.
Yeah, I think Mad Lions performed pretty well at this tournament. I think a lot of the games that they won, they did with they played their style. They won how they were gonna win. They got Armut on his picks. Armut was able to take over. Eliuya actually looked pretty fucking good for a rookie.
Yeah, he's honestly he might be
taking control of the game.
I think he's. I was watching the Caterham show and I agreed with them that he's tied with Huni for probably the best rookie that EU has performance wise.
Yeah, he looked really good and is just able to control the map. But it's really tough because Gen G, whenever I watch them on any sort of international stage, they just seem to not get into the gear that we all have seen them be able to get into.
Mm-hmm.
When within their own region, I've seen them many times look like a really solid team, and when they win and they're able to keep the pace and control the game, they just they close teams out. The problem is, there's just no team in Korea that that plays like any of these fast-paced EU teams or these fast-paced Chinese teams.
Mm-hmm.
All the Korean teams are pretty slow.
Yeah.
I think the fastest paced team might be Hanwha, and that's just because
Chovy and Deft.
Of Chovy and
Forcing
Arthur
the issue.
Forcing stuff.
Yeah.
But that also is Hanwha's biggest problem is sometimes that they're fighting with less skilled
Chovy's
players.
a necromancer. He's carrying skeletons with him. He's the BBEG, and everyone else around him is a fucking skeleton.
Yeah, it's it's just crazy because I don't know. I feel like right now it's tough because you watch all these teams at the MSI and all their stuff revolves around how well their jungle, mid, and support play with each other, and Korea's supports just all look just...
I don't know what happened to Barrel. I was watching the highlights of RNG.
So Barrel, basically what happened is,
Barrel,
there's a new banner on Genshin Impact, and Barrel's a big fan of Genshin, right? So, Chinese company, they told Barrel, hey, we're going to give you EULA for free if you int, this thing to RNG, and that's what happened. The Chinese companies know how to control them with gacha games, let me tell you.
Beryl just randomly was getting picked every single
I'm telling
time.
you, man, it's the
This is
Eula
why,
banner.
like,
It's the Eula banner.
outside of Keria, I think honestly Core JJ is the best Korean support in
Yep.
the world.
Yep.
Unless Faker wants to swap to support, then I think Faker would definitely be the best support in the
Mhm.
world. But the problem is,
I
he's
think
not gonna
most
go
of the
out mid.
Korean mid laners are better players than the support players. I literally
Yeah.
think if you were to swap Showmaker, Faker, Rookie, Chovy, like any of those players, Doinby, they would be better support players than most of the Korean supports right now. Korean support pool has looked the weakest in a long time since the fall of Beryl. Last split, it looked like, or sorry, in 2020, it felt like Keria and Beryl were good players. Now it feels like Keria is the only good player. Like Life is extremely specific, right? He's very tied to Ruler and how he plays support, so I can't feel like that he's a complete support player.
He's not a playmaker. That's
Yeah.
his thing.
Keria feels like a complete support player.
Yeah.
That's about it.
The problem with you can't make Faker support because then you have him and Keria on the same team. You have to get rid of Keria.
You'd have to donate
There's no
Keria to
reason to
Deft.
get rid of Keria.
I bet
could you
you'd come
imagine?
if Keria
Could you
came back
imagine?
to Deft. Yeah,
Yeah, but that doesn't solve Hanwha's top lane problem.
yeah, Hanwha
Their top laner literally has no hands.
Yeah.
That guy's terrible.
Yeah, that's true.
Comparative to other Korean players, obviously.
Yeah, so Michael, we observed that every Korean support player becomes Kevin in the end. Tucson, Gorilla,
They all randomly die
Ole.
in river.
Ole especially because he cries.
It's just so
Lord.
funny, dude. All the support,
Beryl.
just watching Beryl this
Wolf.
tournament, it's like they're watching a replay of a fight at like Dragon or something, and then it's like they in the bottom left corner they like pan in, and it's like just Beryl dying randomly in river to like 3 people. It's like, how did he get here? It's like, what the fuck happened that made Beryl randomly at like Rift Herald with no one else around him? Yeah, I don't know, man.
Okay, so next I want to hit is PSG Talon. Now, Michael, you probably didn't watch much of MSI, so you don't know about PSG Talon, but
I know that they actually did pretty well, and they made it out of.
they
rumble
are the
stage.
reincarnation of Flash Wolves. Their AD carry was filled this time. Doggo,
Yeah.
he almost outperformed Gala in a lot of the games. Like he was at least on par with Gala in many
Yeah.
of the games, and Maple, even though he was
If
really
he-
shitty in LPL,
If he was on Trist, he was like pretty good because he
Yeah.
practiced with Trist.
Yeah. Maple was the second best mid laner at this tournament behind.
Wasn't
Showmaker.
Maple like really bad in
Yeah,
another?
in LPL he was like I
Yeah.
think 10th, 11th, or 12th place mid laner. Somewhere.
Yeah,
like,
I was wondering if that
below
was the same
playoff.
Maple or not
Yep.
when I was looking at the rosters.
It is.
Yeah, same Maple.
But Maple, ever since going back to PCS, he actually has looked insane in MSI. He's literally the second best performing mid laner in the tournament, right? I don't know if I would say that skill level wise he's the second best, but just performance wise.
Yeah.
The amount of pressure he exudes in team fights, especially like you see all the good mid laners on Sylas are insane. Mostly Showmaker and Maple this tournament, right? The good mid laners this tournament were not hesitant in leaving up Gnar and counterpicking with Sylas, right? If you left up Gnar, you were extremely vulnerable to Maple or Showmaker. I think eventually Sylas and Zoe had to be banned against, especially both of them, right? Because they both played Zoe and Sylas above like all the other mids in the tournament. So it is crazy to me that Maple performed this well. Now, as far as PSG Talon's concerned, Hanabi is obviously extremely weak. He was weak back in Flash Wolves. He's still weak right now. But I put them on the tier list at S tier.
Yeah.
Because that's honestly how they looked at the tournament. Now, I will be cautionary is that by the time Worlds comes around, this tier list will probably change, right? Obviously, we go through summer. But also, historically, the Taiwanese teams, they really struggled at Worlds, right? Like, we see Flash Wolves, like, their MSI is really strong. In groups, they might be the Korean
World's
killers.
Fun Group Buffalo were really good at
But the problem
my
is...
brains.
Right, but the problem is by Worlds, they tend to fall off. They usually do a good job in the best of one sometimes, but then later on they just kind of falter. So it's a cautionary tale. But I do think S tier right now is an appropriate ranking for how PSG looked. I don't know if you guys have any.
I mean, if they made it to playoffs, like to knockout stage past Rumble, I think it's appropriate to put them there.
Yeah, I think their best of 5 against RNG was a close 3-1. Like it wasn't like the Mad Lions Damwon series. It was actually a close 3-1 between them and RNG. I think RNG really only stomped one game. The other 3 games were pretty close.
Where it's like fusts.
Yep. Okay, so before we move on to NA, which will be the bulk of the discussion after this, I'll quickly hit on LPL. And, I put a lot of the LPL teams in this tier list.
That's on you for LPL.
Yeah,
I barely watched it.
Yeah, so LPL obviously has the 4 very competitive teams. In playoffs, we saw RNG, FPX, EDG, and TES perform very well against each other. It was extremely hard for me to rank them in terms of, like, where I put them on the tier list. I knew I would put them along with Damwon in the highest, like, kind of tier, right? but the individual, like where I put them, I didn't know. I think the reason I put TES the lowest out of those is mostly because Jackie Love's the flippiest AD carry. LWX is the flippiest AD carry because he somehow entered that final super hard. Jackie Love is the flippiest AD carry outside of LWX there, and I think people really overrate Karsa like in terms of like his level of play. I think the thing with Karsa is like he's really clutch and he's a veteran, so his performance can be pretty solid sometimes. But against the other like strong LPL teams, I do think Karsa was a bit weaker than some of the other junglers. And also 369 this split has not looked amazing, and Zwo has been pretty average. EDG on the other hand, I do think EDG, even though Scout hasn't been performing as well, their Mako and Viper have been so solid in the bot lane, and they're just so good around those two. But sadly, Scout's underperformance a bit has led them a bit weak. Dom1 FPX RNG, I put them top 3. But the main thing is that I put a caveat here is that FPX with Bo, SSS tier. Bo comes back unbanned in the summer, and I'm 100%
Who's their rookie top laner, right?
Bo? No, Bo is not the rookie jungler. Bo's the rookie jungler from the LDL. He got banned because of the LDL match fixing scandal. Right. But in the summer, in July, he gets unbanned, right? So about a month after LPL starts. They have to play Bo. They can't play Tien. Tien is like... Listen, Tien's a lot better than he was last year because he fixed some of his wrist injuries, some of his psychological needs, mental health stuff, right? But they were insane with Bo. They were like fucking undefeated. Like early split EDG and FPX with Bo were the only two teams I initially thought were going to be as good as Dom1. But then EDG started, faltering toward the end as soon as they started facing the more powerful teams, and then FPX had to replace Bo. I still have hope that when Bo comes back in the summer, this is my preliminary ranking, is that based on eye test, at Post-MSI is like, I do think FPX with Bo would have crushed everything at MSI. FPX normally, though, they're in that similar category with RNG and Dom1. It's like, they're too close to tell. It's extremely hard. It's like an on-the-day performance type of thing. Anyhow, I don't know if we'll watch LPL, but if not, we can go to NA.
Yeah, another issue with specifically TN is this meta is just not for him.
Yeah, he's a rubber banding jungler.
None of these junglers work for TN's playstyle at all. He's not in. You saw him we saw him play Udyr. Every game he played Udyr, he just looked like he had no clue what his limits were, and he would just die a lot randomly.
Yeah, I do think that's why I have a bit of hope for FPX and TES. I mean, if TN stays in, also if TS stays in, then with the rubber banding changes, like it's slight. It's not going to be as much as before, but I do think Karsa and TN get a buff from that, right?
Yeah.
I think that'll also help G2 a lot, right, with Jankos.
Yeah, I think Jankos is pretty good.
It should also help
really
TL
to see
too,
this.
as well, I think.
I'm really interested to see this upcoming split and see if things change, especially in EU, just because of all the interesting changes that happen with Vitality getting at least a core group that looks like they can.
Udyr is fun and all, but please,
somewhat compete.
With Udyr, dude.
Bwipo jungle with Fnatic. I mean, I'll quickly touch on the question mark tier. I'm pulling this up on the video. You guys can't see it, but on the video I have the image loaded up, and I put question mark tier. Schalke, the two well-known Vietnamese teams, Fnatic and 100 Thieves. As everyone knows, 100 Thieves acquired Abadage. It's hard to know where they were placed with him. Fnatic, I'm assuming everyone's heard the Bwipo jungle.
Top laner.
Yeah, new top laner, Bwipo jungle. That is going to be crazy. No clue how that's going to turn out, if Bwipo's going to be good. And Schalke kind of blew up because they had to sell Abadage, so they're probably going to be lower, and I think that's going to escalate Fnatic to at least 4th, right? If the Fnatic roster is at least as good as it was before.
Yeah.
Okay, so then let's quickly move to NA. I think, we mostly covered the other stuff. And with NA, we can also cover some of the minor regions because, we are a minor region now, right, boys?
Oh, yeah.
We're the best minor region, but, yeah.
Yeah, we're like the LC boys, except, we get paid much more money. Okay, so, I put Cloud9 and TL, at around B tier, right? And it's it's just, I was not disappointed in Cloud9's performance, and I don't think, people should be, because,
I think everyone should be high. I think the community, at least in NA, just, needs to apologize for Fudge. All these motherfuckers
Fudge was really good this tournament.
Complaining about Fudge. They were talking about how bad he was, and now all of them on C9 subreddit are, sucking him off.
For me, the best player on Cloud9 was Vulcan. I think Vulcan was...
It's between Vulcan and Fudge for most people.
Fudge just outperformed what he was expected to do.
Yeah.
on like an insane
It's
level.
potential that there's a bit of like bias there because of how much he outperformed the expectation. But I do think most people have it between Fudge and Vulcan. For me, I do personally have it at Fudge because it was crazy to me that some of these games, Fudge did well. He still had some rookie mistakes, getting caught out versus RNG. Yeah, that was one of the reasons that led to the first defeat. But one of the things that I didn't like though at the beginning of the tournament was when like C9 was able to take a game off like off Damwon. Yeah, and then like later on they were close to RNG and people were like, oh, like it's so close. Like that means C9 is like around the same level. It's like, okay, so I don't think that necessarily is a bad thing that like, they're close. But I also don't necessarily like I don't want that to equate that to instantly like it's a good thing, because it's like, yes, if they are able to get close to these games, that's really good. But here's the problem. If they make like these game-losing blunders, Blabber flashing for the scuttle, Fudge getting caught out against RNG, them trading Baron for base, against Damwon, losing late game fights, these blunders are like, you can't just overlook it and say like, hey, like we're so close, like that means the team is equivalent strength. You also have to look at it in the terms of like, hey, we made these blunders that, could have been earlier on. I mean, I think the biggest example is obviously the Lost versus Detonation Focus Me. When, he flashed for Scuttle, it's like, yeah, if we're willing to like make risky plays for like good plays, to have better outcomes and leads against teams like RNG and Damwon, it also puts us in these same scenarios, right? Like there's the idea of activity versus precision, right? This is something Yamato Gannon always talked about. It's like LPL teams, in the past, I wouldn't say anymore because a lot of LPL teams have improved their macro, but Korean teams, low activity, high precision. LPL teams, high activity, usually lower precision, right? I think we can't just assume that Cloud9 has high activity, but also like good precision. I do think like some of the advantages they garnered versus these teams, because their willingness to be more aggressive than just the typical NA team, you also have to look at it as reduced precision, right? Because they're, trying to throw more punches. And I do think...
My biggest issue though... Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, yeah, so some of the ints that are caused by that are also the same reasons why they might get leads. So it's impossible to say like whether or not like how close they are, right? Because if you flip games and it's in a best of one sample size, we didn't see them in best of 5. So realistically, we don't actually know how consistent those types of leads they generate are.
My biggest issue is C9, and just it's just these mistakes keep happening over and over and over again. Like Blabber dies for fucking Scuttle how many fucking times, right? Like
it was very strange how reliant Blabber was on how many games were decided based on the Blabber Scuttle. But I mean that could also be a jump.
I think he was just so used to rolling over everyone in NA that he just had a habit of continuously going.
Like he didn't even roll over Grid though in the TLC 9 series.
That is true.
Yeah, but it got more to do with the laners.
Oh, sorry. Armeo, please.
Oh my god.
He's no longer a great knight.
He's our now.
But like, I think Blabber is really mechanically gifted, but dear God, does he not have a brain sometimes? Or like, it just goes to negative.
He's a Blabberfish.
Dude, it's just...
He's like Shadow. He's like Shadow from EU, from Mad Lions. Like, there's a reason.
You're right.
Yeah, he's a Chinese. He's a Chinese kid who's in a different country right now, and he plays like his Chinese roots demand of him. He plays like MLXG. It's in his blood. Okay, it's in his blood to run it down. Shadow did the same thing. Blabber did the same thing. I'm pretty sure I saw them both do like a Chinese interview before. And Shadow next split is going to LPL. He posted on Twitter like in February, like he's like during COVID, like I'm not gonna do this thing, but in summer I'm gonna head over, try to get on an LPL team. Honestly, like same shit with Blabber. They're just both.
It was weird that he took an entire year off.
I don't think he wanted to take an entire year off. I'm assuming.
I don't think he did either, but I think COVID made it hard for him.
Yeah.
But...
yeah, I think there were definitely restrictions traveling from EU to China, and especially for finding work. I'm sure he had to get some sort of visa because China doesn't offer dual citizenship. So
I think C9's a good team. I think internationally they're there, but I think they're good enough to get out of group stage, but I'm not sure they're good enough to like make a deep run.
Yeah,
right?
I think Blabber's gonna go sicko mode next split. He's gonna be like Sven with the Quicksilver Sash play. He took all this flack from the community. Now he's gonna come back with a vengeance.
But here's the problem, though. I don't think Sven was extremely good this tournament either.
Yeah, it's more of a meme. I don't think he's.
I think he's just carried him.
Michael, how do you feel when you hear "No Quicksilver Sash"? He is down. He is shut down. What is he doing?
Have you seen those memes? Have you seen those memes of like the dog having a flashback from like?
The terrified dog. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's you.
Just,
no.
Yeah, I don't.
Silver Sash. Michael,
I think
wait. I want to know, where were you when that exact moment happened? Because for me and Will, we were sitting in Cannon's basement, and Will was just crying on the couch like a little baby. He's like, "Oh, it's over. The TSM fans,
sitting on the
the
couch.
TSM fans are gonna."
I connected my laptop to the TV and I ordered food just for the watch the best of 5. And that's what it ended on. I swear to God.
Will had no faith, and he was the TL fan at the time. Disappointing.
I don't know. I don't know. Like, if you're C9, I don't think you change your roster at all.
Oh yeah, of course. I would never change.
I wouldn't change.
Oh, Fudge
but,
looks insane. Like, dude, if Fudge didn't look as good as he was, I would still rank TL higher. But like, I'm really scared that Alphari is going to decline next split and Fudge is going to be stronger, and that honestly worries me.
My biggest issue right now is I just really want to see Blabber be smart.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Because the way he played like fucking Spica. It was just like brainlessly just pathing and just autopiloting it.
I think Spica plays a bit smarter than Blabber though, right? Like Spica...
No, I agree, but when Spica is lowest, he just kind of just walks in the bushes and face checks everything.
Spica had some questionable pathing this year.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I do think there's probably a bit of disconnect on TSM right now with communication between what Hindi and PoE want to do with Spica. I think having a strong voice like Bjergsen was really helpful for Spica, like 2020. Like, they managed to fucking win, with that team and then go 6 at Worlds. So it's like, when communication was good, we saw how good Spica could be. And then when communication was breaking down and team environment was bad, we also saw, he was actually one of the better performers at that Worlds.
I think Malapow's the worst player on that roster.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, by far, yeah.
Bio's
God, Treats could turn so good. Imagine if Treats would have shown that.
The problem is Treats didn't have the same synergy with Doublelift. Doublelift wanted to classic North American nepotism, guys. Anyways, so moving on from Cloud9. So TL wasn't at this tournament, but I'll give you guys a quick spoiler. When we do our power rankings, next thing, and we do our potential bets or whatever, even though we'll not do that probably, but when we talk shit and stuff, I'm probably gonna rank Cloud9 higher this time because I'm kind of scared of the Fudge. Oh. Fudge is kind of scary, guys. I don't know if Alphari.
I think this tournament helped Fudge a lot.
Yeah, he's
with
scary.
Confidence
man. He's
and
scary.
with his just ability to play.
I'm really scared, dude. So because I want TL to win because first I'll explain this, right? It's like, I love that Perks got destroyed here, right? Because here's the thing. No, I like Perks. I like Perks.
Yeah.
I fucking hate the narrative that people think Perks is some giga mid lane carry. He's not. He's not. The one time I felt in Perks' career that he was insane internationals change was against RNG. That's the only time I felt like Perks had a significant international performance where he seriously did well. And that's against fucking Xiaohu picking tanks and Xiaohu also being in fucking Inter at Worlds. So every other time Perks has been mid lane, right? In an international performance, he has not looked that amazing. I know in 2017 he was decent, but still you look at him compared to the Eastern mids, it's he wasn't as good. I think when you look at him compared to Caps slammed him all of 2018.
I agree.
What Perks
I think
brings,
Perks
is
intangibles.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. It's I want people to realize Perks is not the full package. It's not he has intangibles and he's a god carry and he's everything. No. There's never been a player like that, to my knowledge, okay, that can do all those things, other than Bjergsen in early splits in NA. That's one of the only examples, right? Perks has intangibles, but he's not going to be a god carry mid. And they're going to have to seriously develop that kind of synergy with him and Blabber for future international events. I think, we saw in NA it's going to work out fine. And that's why I think, even in the summer split, they'll probably still win. But I think internationally, that's going to be a, huge issue for them, right? It's Blabber's going to have to improve a lot because Perks and Blabber are going to have to play well together.
Would you argue that TL is a better international team than C9 then?
Not
necessarily.
Not necessarily. TL, it depends how Jensen plays because people are still.
I think tactical we get eaten alive because right now is an AD carry focused. Every team focused around their ADC, and Ghost is a very he was kind of just the what's it called, the Deathly of. But the insane Deathly.
Ghost is the new Prey. Ghost is the new Prey, pretty much.
Yeah. He's really consistent. Yeah. But I think Prey's better, obviously. But
it's debatable. But yeah, I mean, but the idea is he fits the archetype. I think the problem with Team Liquid, when I think about it, is we have not seen Alphari play internationally since Misfits 2017 against SKT, and that was when he was not as strong. Right now, Alphari's a fucking amazing player, but we haven't seen him internationally. So it's really hard to know how good he's going to be. Santorin, he was okay last Worlds. but he has not looked as strong this split. I think after rubber banding gets fixed, yeah, he'll probably look a bit better. Jensen, this is another one I hate. I do think Jensen's probably like one of the strongest mids in NA. Like just in terms of laning, I thought he was better than Perks. But here's the problem: Jensen internationally, we are still stuck on the narrative that he's an insane international player. I don't think that's been the case since MSI 2019. I think
Jensen
after
can't
MSI
play with the jungler. That's his biggest problem. He just gets beaten by any team that has a better mid jungle synergy.
Post MSI 2019, it did not look like Jensen was as strong, right? He was able to do well against Rookie during IG, during that semifinal, but then he got destroyed by Caps. And then at Worlds, once again, Jensen did not look good in that group stage. And he got solo killed by Rookie, and that solo lost them the game. 2020, at Worlds, Jensen was better, but he wasn't delivering that kind of like 2018, 2017 international Jensen performance that like people would say like, oh, he's doing better than Bjergsen internationally, right? I didn't feel that same way where it's like, oh, Jensen's doing so much better than the other NA mids. So I think it's hard to say how well he'll perform. CoreJJ, I have a lot of trust in. I do think he performs decently well internationally. It's usually like 60 to 70% of his games he looks like, his Korean
I have no
self.
faith in tactical.
30% of CoreJJ he looks like NA CoreJJ. And tactical, yeah, I just have no faith.
So tactical's already burnt out after like 1 year in the league. I don't think he's got a chance against these players who grind every day.
Yeah, so
he's Malphite ulting with Tristana every game.
Yeah, so I mean, I just can't see TL as I honestly can't make a judgment to say they're better than C9 internationally. Honestly, it feels like I'm arguing against them being able to be better against C9 internationally. But that's as far as the two top NA teams are concerned, right? I think below that, I had to default with TSM as like third for the most part. Like going into we're not going to go through the entire NA like tier list because there's other things I want to talk about regarding NA.
I think top four.
Also, the NA teams are really boring. There's only two that matter.
Yeah, but it's mostly I want to talk about like 100 Thieves with Apodaca, like briefly because we'll go more in depth with this next.
I think that team's going to be more interesting.
Yeah, so like. That's definitely one that we should watch out for at TSM. But I wanted to lastly hit on like some of the wildcard teams like Pentanet. Pentanet, like according to a lot of analysts, they were thinking like, okay, Pentanet, like even post beating Cloud9, they were saying, okay, Pentanet's probably like a high tier what would you call it? A high tier.
You put them like top
academy team. Academy team.
Oh,
they consider it a high tier academy team. I honestly think Pentanet looked better than that. Like a high tier academy team, like I think they looked. Well, sorry. High tier academy team in theory. I guess I shouldn't necessarily say that.
I think with a little bit of polish. Like if I'm like
I thought Pentanet looked better than FlyQuest.
If I'm Golden Guardians, I take a chance on their 80 carry instead of Stixay. Like their 80 carry looks like with some polish he could be really good. Like he had some really nuts performances. But
I think everyone on Pentanet looked good outside of Chaz.
Abu is like a very intelligent player. He could play like any role. He's like the Bwipo of O's.
Yeah, dude, that's what I mean. Is like Pentanet to me, they looked just like last place playoffs NA level, or like slightly below playoffs NA level. Like that's legitimately what I think.
I would totally want them to be like a team in NA.
Yeah, I would love it.
If we could take 2 OS teams over to NA and just have a 12-team league, I think it would make the league way more competitive.
I want the boys here. Yeah, no, I agree. I put Detonation Focus Me slightly above Pentanet in this thing because like they did like look much better.
We're recycling solo for like a 5th season. Like, come on, we could bring in.
I'm fine with solo for GGS because it's like
I'm fine for it too because they at least have their one jungler guy, but I forget his name.
Iconic, right?
Yeah, Iconic. Iconic actually showed. Yeah. And Niles does need time to develop, but it's just so funny how they like. I thought Chime actually looked really good. I don't know if you guys watched Academy at all, but I thought Chime has looked really good for the past like 3 seasons because he's.
I haven't watched that much Academy.
Yeah, even in the in-houses, like when he matched up against CoreJJ, like elite, like CoreJJ like gave him high praise and said that like he was like one of the better like players that that like grinded those in-houses.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on from the teams then, and since we're on the OCE topic, but before we go, because next week we're going to go much more in depth about like NA. Yeah, so well, maybe not next week, but we'll see. So we'll
when we get to it.
Yeah, when we get to it. I do want to talk about that whole OCE topic, like you said, was like bringing in an OCE team. I think it'd be really cool if a team actually committed to like having like those boys here. I mean, it is really funny to me that like we took their best players. We took Ray's Destiny, we took Lost, we took who's the other 80 carry we took from them? Who's FBI? We took Fudge, and fucking Pentanet was still able to beat us in a BO1, which, like, again, there's a reason why Pentanet's G tier and Cloud9. There's a reason Pentanet is G tier and Cloud9 is B tier, right? Because I still think Cloud9, obviously, in best of 3, they'd probably win like 3-0 against Pentanet. But, like, still, it is just funny to me that that happened, right? And that's kind of like, I don't know. OCE still seems to have a lot of talent. Maybe there's more people we can harvest from OCE. What do you guys think?
We need to harvest the organ so we have less Stixays and less, I don't know, Darshans. Like, Viper just got picked up again. Like, how many times are we just gonna keep recycling players that are bad, you know?
I just want all the Australians and Kiwis out there, all the boys out there. I want them to know that America accepts them, and they should totally come play with us. Because, come on, I love the O's boys, and they're doing some good ass.
It brings some excitement. They would trash talk. It'd be nice.
Yeah. Did you see the Unicorns of Loss when they did the Unicorns of Loss thing? That was hilarious, dude. Come on, that was pretty good. Like, import Mid Beast, import all these dudes. It'd be great. Yeah.
Mid Beast.
What? Dude, bring him over here in NA. Bring him to LA so he can be a streamer. In LA.
I don't need to import him. He can just import himself.
I know. I'm saying you tell him, hey, come make content in LA with like Team Liquid or some shit.
Isn't he already sponsored by Team Liquid?
Exactly, and then just bring him to LA now, and he can be like, oh yeah, hey, what's up, guys? Mid Beast here, and like, yeah, it's sick, dude. I love it. Okay, so where do you guys? Okay, so let me ask you this: do you think it's there's a reason. Again, I put Pentiment in G tier because it is such an overreaction people had in the best of one, right? Like, you have to admit, like, that was an extreme overreaction, but it's mostly because people have fun dunking.
Dying. They're horrible.
Okay, so do you think in the next year or two we're gonna have like an insane amount of actually this question has to be prefaced. I don't know. I'm assuming, Will, you've heard all the rumors about like the import rule stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Michael, have you heard about this? I don't know how close.
Yep, I've been following that.
Okay, so general thoughts. Like, do you think like things are going to change next year, maybe even next split potentially? Like, what do you think is going to change? Because I'm really shocked.
Not next split, but maybe next year.
Okay, because here's my opinion. Right? If I was a rational person, I would say like no, there would be no import changes because, in theory, right, like none of the other regions would ever agree to this. It's like, why would they agree to it? But here's the problem. Assuming that's the only information I have, yeah, I would say that. But here's the thing. Riot has withheld from saying this. Every fucking 2 weeks, Travis is like, friendly reminder, guys, Travis Gafford here. Just to say it's been 7 months since Riot has refused to comment on this thing, blah, 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 blah. Travis does his talking, and it's like, shit. But Travis is right, though, it's like, Riot has not commented on it. And it's like, if a person is not commenting on something, there's clearly like a reason for that, and it's probably because there's discussion going on behind doors that has not been resolved yet. So as a rational person with that kind of information, I have to assume that like there is a big potential that things might change,
Potential, but I also think Riot doesn't want to say anything and like give bad information before like a deal is actually confirmed.
Right.
They also don't want to scare the community and like. Yeah. I think they're better off staying quiet than being like, there is potential that we might change import rules because everyone's gonna cry and freak out, especially around MSI time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so what kind of import? Because so here's one thing I thought of is like I have no problem with them changing it so you can import from LATAM, those places, Turkey. Well, maybe so I'd make like PCS and like Turkey maybe off limits, right? But I would say like everywhere else is probably fair game.
Like CB LOL, stuff like that.
CB LOL, OCE, like for any region, I think those would be fine. The only reason I'd say Turkey and PCS is off limits.
Because they're good enough on their
own.
They
actually have good teams there, right? I don't want them to be able to like import it without like restriction.
Oh, you don't want Takao to like journeyman to NA? It's like so good team to Worlds.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think of that though? Is like having most of the minor regions open. I think that's like one that most people mention, and it's like at least agreed upon that it's like an okay standard.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think especially for like LJL players, I think some LJL players like deserve a chance at like a better region.
Yeah.
I haven't watched like LATAM or CB LOL enough to like know what players are good there.
Dude, LATAM has a great talent. He's actually a free agent now because he got kicked off his team. Ruin. Ooh, CLG.
Ruin was. It's so funny though. Ruin was so hyped in scrims. I remember even Doublelift was saying like, "Oh, Ruin was like." So
he actually wasn't bad. He had like decent stats. Compared to that entire CLG team, he was
like
actually,
Ruin was solo killing Impact.
Player,
Impact was complaining like the matchups Ruin was playing are unplayable. But then just on stage, he just never showed up. He just looked like shit on stage. It happens so much.
You were around during the Seraph era, were you, Jack?
No, I wasn't.
CLG Seraph and we had fucking Winter Fox Avalon.
Yeah, I'm not an old
Cool.
man, so I don't know about
Oh,
that.
fuck off. Who only down into a team because his brother like vouched for him when he's like a low master player.
That's
Oh,
funny.
dude,
Yeah, so
that's actual nepotism.
I mean, how do you guys think viewership will go if we get all these teams? I don't think it'll hurt viewership, to be honest. Like, I think NA viewership's
I think
already
NA's
fucked.
viewership would take a huge. We saw how much
I think NA viewership's already
the
fucked.
viewership
So.
jumped when we got Jose Dioto. That's
Yeah.
one player. Imagine if we got
Yeah,
players
exactly.
from other regions.
I think if
Yeah.
anything, it would be helpful. I think we're on a downtrend anyways. We might as well say fuck it. Like let's try to get these international viewers. You know.
I think Japan will actually watch us if we got a bunch of LGL players.
Well, that's what I've had. I've told Jack about this. I've had such a problem with teams like Immortals trying to throw together these sloppy rosters with like partial new players and then like paying money for like Xerxes for like, dude, just grab a whole team from a different region and just make money marketing to that region. Like FlyQuest has made so much money focusing on like
NA only.
Yeah, FlyQuest
like
wasn't even
LatAm.
good this split, and they were so
Like,
smart about like marketing.
Yeah,
their
like
team.
FlyQuest got casters. They got casters in Spanish. They had a whole focus on on Spanish, like Spanish History Month and stuff like that. Like they did a whole bunch of stuff. Like that shit's like so smart. Like that is great marketing. That's like a great way to like if your team can't compete, you're not going to compete with the top two teams in the league. Make a team like this. Develop players. Bring teams over from other regions, and see like if you can get a fan base. You know, if you're not like because half these teams make YouTube videos that get like a couple thousand views. Like, get a team like this, you're gonna have a fan base built in.
It's really only
Why
TSM I
not?
think that actually like is popular on like social media.
Yeah,
Right?
it's TSM, Team
TSM,
Liquid, and
Team Liquid,
C9. They're the only ones who actually have content that's
FlyQuest
being
is
watched.
the only like new one because of them being
FlyQuest
smart.
is yeah, FlyQuest is in 100 Thieves obviously. 100
Oh
Thieves.
yeah, sorry, 100. I forgot because I.
But
I see
FlyQuest
it,
makes good content
Yeah.
because they've been focusing around like audiences
like
that they
yeah,
and like they
FlyQuest
know what they're
players
doing.
aren't like the most popular outside of Jose Dioto, but it's like they're good at demographic targeting. Is a good way to put it.
Yeah. That's why it'd be so nice to see one of these teams just go for a player like that, you know.
I mean,
or a
the
team
biggest
like
fuck
that,
up was
LGL team. Or...
the biggest fuck up last split was GGS not going with the full NA. Like, oh, we're the Americans. Like, we're the fucking like NA lads. You know, like that was the big fuck up that Will pointed out. He was like, wait a second, they're all NA.
They should have
like,
been a whole team of NA. Been like, we're the NA boys. Blah blah blah. Like they could have been.
Dude, it's like when fucking OCE had a team called Rich Gang and just played off that entire spiel.
Yeah, I mean, look at EG's marketing strategy. It's like I understand, like I get the whole like evil geniuses thing, but it's like the problem is
Sad
like,
live evil.
the problem is their players just didn't like embody enough of that.
It's only Sven. It's only Sven, but Sven's too much of a nice guy.
Yeah, it's only Jizuke.
It would have worked if they did live evil and they were like shit talking.
Yeah, but they don't.
They were like the
Impact and Sven and Deathly.
The only one who does it is Jizuki. It's Jizuke.
And Jizuke is hard to take seriously because he looks like a clown. He looks like
he's also nice, like otherwise.
Yeah, like
they need to be like that's the team Dardock needed to be on.
That's the team Dardock and Perks need to be on, dude.
Dardock could have been on Live Evil.
Dardock, Perks, Double Lift. Imagine them on EG. Hashtag
yeah,
Live
they
Evil.
need to.
Imagine them changing rosters in 5 days. 5 games.
Yeah, who's the EG's new to carry? I forgot to check that.
I don't know. I do find it funny because so I kind of want to shit on Dan a bit here, but it is funny. Dan always loves going off the C9 scrim data for like how he believes which teams are strong. So he always listens to his boy Diamond. He's like, oh, I know the C9 scrim data, so I think this team is
Flash
strong.
rel ulti into no one.
Dude, I'm telling you, man. I remember Dan was telling us beginning of split, like when EG was doing well in the lock-in tourney, he was like, "Oh, Definitely's finally having his time." Like, like people always doubted him, but he's actually a really good AD carry. Blah blah blah. And I was like, he's just like fucking Degon. Like, Michael, have you seen Face Check?
Yes, and Degon's the biggest fanboy.
Don't you? Or is Degon Filipino?
I think he's like part. He has to be part Filipino.
Okay, is Definitely Filipino?
No, Definitely he's like Korean.
Oh, okay. Well, it was just really funny to me because it was like
he likes him because he was the GM when he brought in.
Okay, it was just so funny because Degon's insane. Degon's like me with Jackie Love, right? He's always just like, yeah, Definitely's my boy. Definitely hopium. Like, I know Definitely's gonna come back. You dark guys are all doubters. Blah blah. It's just such a huge meme for them. It's like that's what it felt like when Dan was saying like, yeah, Definitely's like finally having his time. Like people finally realize how good he is. And then as soon as the lock-in ends, we just see like, oh yeah, Definitely's not actually that good. And EG was just like, it was mostly just impact hard pressuring like everywhere. And like definitely just got to free auto people. There was that one series where like definitely was ahead, and he felt like Han Samo when he was ahead, right? Where it's like he just
Definitely's
couldn't
not
auto
good
attack
to play
people.
around. That's his
Yeah.
problem. Is
Yeah.
like he's really good at being the weak side laner.
I don't remember which series it was, but I remember there was a series that EG played where they were ahead.
TSM series?
And it might have been where definitely just didn't auto attack people.
Yeah, no, that's a TSM series because he walked in, gets headbutt out immediately by Core JJ,
Yeah, he
flashes back in,
sucked.
then just dies.
Yeah, he just sucked. He didn't know how to position. I was like, dude, this is
Yeah.
just insane to me.
Yeah, then he Kaisa ults in and then doesn't Zanya the Syndra ult and just dies again.
Yeah, it was just disgusting to me. So, EG, they have the new AD carry being promoted. If there is a team I do have faith in for developing talents, EG, because they have Kelsey and they have Peter Dunn.
Yeah.
And, I trust a lot Peter. And Kelsey actually, she spent a lot of time with LPL, so it's like very, I don't know. I do think she has an eye for talent.
Players like Prismal into like good players.
Oh, yeah, she was on the 100 Thieves Academy, too. And she helped
Prismal
with
deserves a
Amateur
spot, dude. Prismal should be their new AD carry, honestly.
Yeah, so I do have a lot of faith in EG in that sense, right? But yeah, I mean that about does it with all the topics I had for this week. Do you guys have anything else you want to discuss? Otherwise, next week, I was thinking that we.
I just want to say I was top of that spreadsheet of all the stores we did.
Okay, Michael. Okay, that is true. We'll talk about that next week. We'll talk about.
I already got my rude comment out. That's all I cared about.
You got your ruin comment? Is that what you were hoping this entire time? Is that what you were planning in your back?
Yeah, I was gonna make a comment at the end.
Dude, Will's entire spiel about CLG being average was the highlight of that fucking spreadsheet.
Dude, I'm gonna give you guys a spoiler, okay? I really think CLG will be better next split. I really think CLG.
Jack, I've said this for the past 3 years, and I've been wrong.
No, that's because you're an idiot. I've never said that before in the past 3 years.
I've been slowly becoming a CLG fan the past like 3 years, just because I love cheering for this terrible team with terrible marketing.
And I've slowly become a TL fan because I wanted to see Kaiba win.
It's Turtle, Smoothie,
Broxa, Finn, and
like
I don't even know their
Pope out there.
You got to admit, like Team Liquid is the Kaiba Corp of like NA. And
that's a playoff team.
I've slowly wanted them to just win more because they're like.
That's a playoff team. Considering what we have now,
I think CLG will. I think CLG will be better next split. I think Finn is good, and I think.
Yeah, no, I think Finn proved me wrong on a lot of aspects.
Yeah,
they should. They just need a good. As much as I love Pope, they need a carry.
Well, you don't see his Lucian games how he pops off and then gets randomly caught in side lanes like 9 times out of 10.
They just need like one carry that's not Finn, because as much as
Turtle.
I think Finn's a good player, yeah, but Turtle's not a carry anymore. He's like a random.
Ironically, though,
really
Turtle is probably a top half ADC. I do think
he is, but also our NA talent is horrible.
Yeah,
I think I don't understand how Prismal still doesn't have a job.
I mean, if we look at NA AD carries, who do we have? Right, it's like Sven. Sven looked really bad internationally. Well, not really bad, but he looked subpar. Tactical dropped off the face of the earth. We have Lost and FBI. Right, Lost and FBI are both quite good. And then it's like after that, it's like what? It's like Turtle. Honestly, it might be Turtle.
Yeah.
Wait, who? Oh, sorry, Neo. I would say Neo above Turtle. Neo from Dig. But
I think Neo is a better overall player, but I think Turtle's a better carry. So I think Neo plays Seraphine and like other like really flexible bot laners really well.
Yeah. It'll be.
Neo has the problem.
This will be next week.
Problem as Patrick. He changed his name and now he's trash.
Wait, what did he change his? Oh, did he change it to Asta?
He was Asta, and then he changed it.
Wasn't he Neo first and then Asta and then Neo again? No.
I don't know. I only know him as Asta. He might have been Neo or back when he first started.
Well, do you like the name Neo or Asta better? Let me ask you this before
Asta.
Okay, you do realize Asta is the name of an anime character, right? And that's the whole.
I don't care. It sounds cooler than Neo. Neo is like the most generic name of anyone who's played a shooter. Oh, I'm not from the Matrix. It's like,
You'd
okay,
rather
buddy.
be an anime character? You have fallen with. No,
Sheriff was such a cool name for an AD carry because you like get gunned down.
Sheriff was a pretty cool name. And he fucking changes his name to Patrick. Is this Sheriff? No, it's Patrick.
Yeah. No, it's just Patrick.
God.
That's been some of like our best memes on, but sadly I've never posted them on Reddit.
No, our great memes is like when we're playing, like one of us is playing ADC and then like you die or something. I'm like, is this Sheriff? No, this is Patrick. Okay, all right. That's all for this week. Next week we'll talk about the players.